My name is Sian. I'm a textile artist and I specialise in working with botanical dyes and the philosophy of biophilia. So I'm going to be taking you through a step-by-step process of dyeing with madder root. Madder root yields these beautiful red to orange to corally pinks. It's an ancient dye that was used centuries ago by the Egyptians and the Romans and the Greeks, and archaeologists found fragments of madder root dye on a linen cloth in Tutankhamun's tomb. It's one of the first dyes that I ever used. It's a very giving dye. You can keep using the dye vat time and time again, and it just keeps yielding all these beautiful colours. So there's a few bits and pieces that we need for this process. We obviously need our wool, and we need pre-mordanted wool, which has been woven locally in Wales. You need your madder root, which is easily available from lots of natural dye supplies. You need a net. I generally get these nets from brewers' supplies. I like to put my madder root inside the net to stop all the little particles adhering to the cloth. You need some scales. I generally use the digital ones for the finer powders and the larger scales for weighing out my plant matter. We need a thermometer, and this is a really important part of the dyeing process with madder root. Madder is very sensitive to heat, so if you want to be able to maintain all your lovely reds, you need the thermometer to help you control the temperature, which I'll discuss more a little bit later. So I generally use the thermometers that you get for cooking, for making jam. We need some eco detergent for washing later, and we need calcium carbonate, which is basically chalk in powder form. We will add this to our dye bath before we add the cloth. This helps with achieving some really, really lovely reds. I generally soak my madder roots the night before I do my dyeing. So this pot has been soaking overnight, so you can see the net bag has absorbed some of the dye colour already. We've got some lovely colour coming before we've even put it on to heat. So we're going to take our pre-mordanted cloth, we're going to soak it in water. Cold water is fine. It just helps with achieving a really nice even colour. I kind of sort of compare it to when you're painting watercolours and you wet your cloth and then add the watercolour, and the colour just disperses really beautifully. So that's how I like to think how it works in the pot as well. Leave that to soak for a little while. So just to confirm the measurements we've used today: 100 grams of madder root to 100 grams of cloth. We're going to add 6 grams of calcium carbonate to our dye vat that's been soaking overnight. There we go, we've got 6 grams there. I'm taking the calcium carbonate and adding that to our dye vat. So this is all still cold, we haven't put any cloth in yet. Just holding the net up with the roots in, I'm just going to give that a really good stir to dissolve the chalk. And it already starts to change sort of colour a little bit by adding that chalk. I like to really remember to observe all the smells as well. It's a very, very earthy, very sort of evocative smell, the madder. So we're going to add a little bit more water to the pot, just to allow more space for the cloth to be immersed. I'm going to pull the net out a little bit, again to allow a bit more space for the material to move around. And we're just going to tie that, make sure it doesn't catch fire on the hob. I'm just going to wrap that around there. So we're just going to take the cloth out after it's been soaking. I'm going to give it a little squeeze. And then we're going to open out the cloth. I tend to open it out to be able to ease it into the pot. I'm just going to gently, bit by bit, submerge it. So there's enough space in there for the cloth to move around. Add the thermometer, and we're going to keep it in the pot so we can monitor the temperature. Put the dye bath onto the heat. We need to take the temperature up gradually, so 45 minutes up to temperature 60 degrees, and then maintain that 60 degrees for a further 45 minutes. If you take it over 60 degrees, your colours will start to turn to brown. I mean, they can be really beautiful rusty browns, but yeah, the reds are the really magical aspect of madder. It's important while the cloth is in the dye vat to very gently turn the cloth. Try not to prod it. This will just start to felt the cloth, the wool cloth. So there we go. It's good to let the pot cool down. The cloth has gone through a lovely process of being immersed in the madder root dye. We're going to take the cloth out of the vat now, and we've got a really beautiful red. I'm going to squeeze out the excess dye so we can use for later for the exhaust bar. It's always good to transfer your cloth from cold to cold, as opposed to if that vat is very hot and you're transferring it to cold water, it can shock the fabric. So we're just going to give this an initial little rinse to get out the excess dye. Give that a little bit of a squeeze. I've added a little bit of Eco detergent, liquid detergent, laundry detergent to some water. So we're going to give that a little rinse through that. And pull that out. Another little squeeze. And then do one final rinse. Just all the bubbles out. And then we'll hang that cloth out to dry. And there's your lovely madder cloth.